Hello everyone, Usman here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I am going to be doing a review for episode 7 of What If. For today's episode, it basically was talking about what if Thor was an only child. I probably would say it was the weakest episode of the series so far, mainly for me, because I didn't think it was a bad episode, like it was always terrible or something, but I mean, it was weak because I feel like there was just a lot of comedy in there. Some of it was just a little too unneeded or so, like it was just kind of like something that I guess just didn't need to be put in there really for, what I thought. It's just like, with the story itself, it just basically talks about Loki not being there, and then I guess even Thor's Loki is like Thor's like brother. When you think about it, in the entire MCU, Loki has been there to basically just do a lot of terrible things, and Thor's there to stop him and basically be like, Loki, you're wrong. Why would you do these things? Like, what is wrong with you? I always have to go after you. A lot of comedy, that kind of stuff. I mean, I like some parts of the comedy, some aspects of the comedy, but it's like, it was whatever. But, by the way, this will be a spoiler review as well because, I'm going to be delving into spoilers for this episode. So, yeah, you've been warned. There were some things that stood out to me, I think, in this episode that I liked. There was, the Captain Marvel versus Thor fight. Captain Marvel was there to stop Thor because Thor was, basically causing a lot of havoc and everything like that. He was just out there, partying, enjoying himself, all that kind of stuff and whatever. But she was like, you know what? You need to be stopped because you're a threat to humanity. You did these kinds of things, and that was bad, and you need to be stopped. Thor was just like, I don't care. Nothing bothers me, So, he was the kind of guy who just didn't really care about what the consequences were. He was just trying to have a good time regardless of what planet he was on. So when she was there to stop him under the directive of Nick Fury, she was able to put up a good fight, against, Thor. And that was a really cool battle. Like, that battle itself was pretty cool because we never got a chance to see, obviously, Thor and Captain Marvel fight in the MCU, in live action. I know there's always, debates about, which character is powerful. A lot of people are saying that, Captain Marvel is, the most powerful Avenger or type of character in the MCU, and she is pretty powerful. She really is. I mean, she was able to go up against Thanos in Avengers Endgame, and then also she blew up, a couple of ships and stuff like that by just going through them, flying, because she has, a bunch of crazy powers and stuff like that. When I saw the episode, I was like, this actually does seem like it would make sense, because, when she's fighting Thor, with the way that she's using her powers, because she got her powers through, the Cosmic Cube winning the Infinity Stone, so I was like, it makes sense that she probably would be able to go up against someone like Thor. And I just loved the fight choreography, the way he was using his hammer, and there was one cool part about it too, she was able to fight him, and yet Thor was shooting lightning from his hammer. When he was doing that, she was able to absorb all of that thunder or whatever from him like it was nothing. I like how they just went more deeper with her power level. Well, what I mainly referenced before with with Loki. Loki was actually in this episode. Loki stayed with his frost giant family. Odin didn't just take him from his family, raise him as his own, I guess, It was different this time. It was what it was originally supposed to be. He stays with his family. There's not any bad things happening between the Asgardians and the Frost Giants. He becomes a Frost Giant. He's actually a physical Frost Giant in this episode. He's really tall, blue, everything like that. He kind of has the horns for his helmet, and it just shows that Thor and Loki are actually best friends, which is interesting. I kind of also thought that there would still be an antagonistic sort of relationship towards each other. That was kind of interesting and funny. In the MCU and in the comics, they're enemies, so, that's just what it is. I mean, in the first Thor movie, Thor and Loki, Loki just seems like always the jealous one. He wants the throne. He doesn't like Thor secretly. Loki would always, in a way, he would advise Thor to be don't do these things, don't do those things, that kind of thing. And then, of course, obviously in future movies, Thor would be like, Loki, you're crazy. Why are you doing these terrible things? It shaped kind of Thor's overall character development. It developed Thor as a whole when Loki was brought into the whole mix in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I liked how they did a different approach with that, though, with they're both best friends. Jane Foster, she was okay. She kind of played the same role like she did in the first Thor movie, where she's like, oh, you're Thor, and I know about you. Well, actually, in the first Thor movie, though, she didn't really know about Thor. He was like, who's Thor? And then there was a scientist who basically was like, no, this is who this guy is. This is Thor. In this What If episode, she actually knew who Thor was, and she was like, you're Thor. And they still end up, getting into they're in a relationship afterwards, and that's still like it was in the movies. It was very quick. Very, very quick, but it was sort of in a comedic way rather than being in an emotional way, where they're just in the movie. It kind of makes sense how they get together, as opposed to what it's like in this, where it just happens instantaneously. It was just kind of whatever as an episode. When it made it like that, it was okay. It kind of followed something where Odin was in the Odin sleep, and so you had Frigga, who is Thor's mom, and she was on Asgard. Thor was just out on on Midgard, on Earth, like having a good time. He's having a great time, like I mentioned, like partying, everything like that, being super irresponsible. That's what happens, I guess, probably, yeah, when Loki's not involved, or his sister is not. When all that stuff happens, and then his mom is brought into the fray. She basically is like, finds out that Thor is on Earth having a good time, like enjoying himself, like basically being irresponsible. And then Thor's like, oh my gosh, she knows I'm throwing a party. She knows that I'm doing all these crazy things. Like, what am I supposed to do? We need to clean up this place. Like, it's kind of like how it is, like, where in these movies and shows and, like, with teen comedies or whatever, it's like, oh, there's a party being thrown at a house and the parents are gone, and then the character's like, okay, we're gonna enjoy my time, whatever. But then when the mom or dad or whatever the parents call, they're like, we're coming back home, son or daughter, or whatever, and then they're like, oh gosh, we have to clean up immediately. It was just weird. I wasn't really laughing. I mean, there were some parts like, that's, I don't even know if I was really laughing. I just thought this was the weakest episode. I thought, some of the characters were sort of uninteresting, and with Jane Foster still being the same, uninteresting, that kind of thing. And then even her friend, she's with Howard the Duck. She is in a relationship with him. At the end, though, it is pretty cool. I do like, there's like a thing that references like Ultron, who's basically the villain. He's going to be a villain for the future of this series, and that's a pretty interesting part of the episode that caught my eye, so that's what I liked. I don't hate it. I think it's decent. Still feel free to check it out. Maybe you might have a different opinion than I do. A lot of different Easter eggs in it that for a lot of hardcore comic fans who, love the MCU and Thor. But yeah, it was very goofy, very weird, but I know because they've had some other episodes in the series which are pretty dark, so I guess this was an episode that was sort of lighthearted or pretty lighthearted, not sort of. And it was just like, you know what? Let's just ease the tension a little bit. Let's just make it a little bit more fun and happy. But yeah, this is on a weekly basis, so episode 8's next week. As always, like, subscribe, comment, all that amazing stuff, and I'll see you next time.